Okay. Say hi, Lily. Hello. Hello. Let's talk about the Black Plague. The Black Plague, or the bubonic plague, as you might know it, which I found out is maybe a little inaccurate. It's not necessarily untrue, but there's also, it's like just like a form of the plague is bubonic with, that's the one with, called buboes. They're like bubbles of bacteria and pus and gross stuff. And then there's pneumonic plague, which is when it gets into your lungs. That one's really, really bad. That one you're gonna die from all of them if you're a 14th century peasant, right? But that one's bad. The plague, it is a bacteria that lives in fleas that are on top of rats, who are very common in 14th century Europe. Rats are everywhere. And the plague seems to have originated in Asia and then come to Europe through trade routes in Sicily. Basically, rats came through on a boat, and the rats had fleas on them, and the fleas started biting people. And when the fleas bite people, the bacteria that have made a home in the fleas go into your bloodstream and start to reproduce in your body. And then they'll clump up and start making buboes. And that's how you get these really gross black bubbles. Eventually, the bacteria takes over your body and you die. Or if it gets into your lungs, it can mess with your respiratory and then you die. It's not a fun death. You know, obviously they weren't taking showers, and they didn't have antibiotics. They did not have anything that could stop this sort of plague. So it kind of rampaged through Europe, killed anywhere from 30 to 60% of the entire population of Europe, which is insane to think about. In the world, it was like 200 million people. Imagine 30% now, even 30. Some people say it was 60, but like imagine 30% now. That's like 2 billion people dead. But we have medicine now, and we don't go putting leeches on everyone when we think they're dying, which is another reason why it was so bad. The people in charge, the people who you went to help, they had absolutely no idea what was happening either, right? Like these doctors, dude, they were just as lost as everyone else, except they had the authority to like seriously hurt people and say that they were right about it. They didn't know what they were doing, but they started just trying things, seeing if it would work, and it didn't usually. Something that I found mind-boggling was that actually a lot of people blamed Jewish people for the plague and committed violence against them to try and like solve it, which is not something that I learned in any history book. But what we should talk about is the most iconic part of the plague doctor. There were a few things that they did well. Character design, excellent, so iconic. They wore those cloaks and the mask thing. They would put herbs and stuff in the mask to clean the air because they thought that it might be like bad air spreading the disease. And then they wear long flowing cloaks. Actually, because of the long flowing cloaks and the being completely covered part is made it way harder for people to touch you, any sort of spreading interpersonal, but it also made it a lot harder for ticks to bite them, which is the major way that the disease spread. It worked. Not what they tried to do, but I guess kudos. Good job. Maybe stop putting leeches on people. But yeah. Good job. Stop torturing people.